What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Locked On Bucks, and as promised, we've got a primetime guest on the show today. Part of the Bucks championship coaching staff, we should say. Blaine Mueller is with us, and quite honestly, we just don't get a lot of insight into the coaching staffs across the NBA. So this is going to be really cool. We'll get into the championship stuff. We'll get into what just happened at Summer League, and also Blaine's path to the NBA. I'm curious to find out more about that. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show daily and also find my work over at ESPN. And alongside me, as I mentioned, Blaine Mueller from the Bucks coaching. We could get into this. I always say this. You guys have different titles along the way. You were head video coordinator at one point. Is that still your title? What is your title right now, Blaine?
Yeah, I had a dual title. Assistant coach is kind of the
Yes.
overriding one. So that's the one that I roll with.
I like it. That's what I've been rolling with all week. So that makes sense. We thank everyone for making Locked On Bucks your first listen or first watch of every day, particularly in late July. We are right in the middle of the offseason right now. But as we mentioned earlier in the week, we'll have some Giannis games to cover in a few weeks. So we're excited about that. But for you, Blaine, we'll get into Summer League a little bit later on. But just right now, do you take a few weeks? Do you get any time? Because I was sitting there watching Summer League on the couch at home and thinking, these guys haven't had a break for what feels like 2 years straight.
Yeah, I mean the bubble to the championship run into last season, that was weird. Because even with COVID and the hiatus and we were kind of shut down, right? Like all I did all day, every day during the lockdowns, the initial ones, was watch video. I rewatched our entire season. So those 3 consecutive kind of years, really that was 2 years of actual lifetime, really blended together. Unfortunately in our line of work, if you get time off, that means that you didn't win.
That's right.
So it's a little bit of a trade-off. I think I have a lot after the last run or so, even just one championship run, but the season's being condensed, the off season's being condensed between them. You have a lot of appreciation for what the Golden States, the Clevelands, in there, and the Miamis, when you're going 3-4 in a row or more, it's very commendable what those staffs are doing. But we got a few weeks after the season ended for us after Game 7 in Boston, and then we kind of started picking back up with the young guys and just getting ready and gearing up for Summer League. And then post Summer League, usually get a week or two. So I'm actually in North Bend, Washington. I've been coming up here for 8 years now, and now it's, like I said before, just turned into this the post Summer League kind of flush for me to get out here. I'm not an outdoors guy in practice, but I love just being outside, and it's a nice change of pace from going from NBA city to NBA city, and especially Las Vegas, where it's just go. So yeah, nice couple of weeks here. August is lighter. We'll have guys in for workouts. We'll probably do a coach's retreat. Might get sent somewhere to go work out with a player. But it's kind of the big picture, knowing that once it turns into September and we're kind of rolling to training camp, it's pedal to the metal for, hopefully 9-10 months into June.
Can you switch off? Do you find it easy?
No, not really.
Yeah.
It takes this is the one kind of time where it's I'm not quite ready to start prepping for next year, kind of finishing up some loose ends from last year. Summer League takes up a bunch of time, and it's just different roles. So right now is as close as I can get, but I was still working on stuff. It's hard not to. It's just it's part of who we are.
So I said at the start, it's pretty rare that we get a chance to get some insight in terms of what you do day to day, what you're doing during games. But before we get to that, I found a story on you, Blaine, which was post-championship, I believe. and I'm not sure what was it, the Watertown News or something like that. So
Yeah, it would have been Daily Times.
so I didn't realize. So so you're a local guy from growing up, or I know you went to school in. Well, I found
Yes,
out you went to school in Wisconsin, so Watertown High, then played a season UW Stevens Point. So you grew up in Wisconsin.
I did. Yes, Watertown's about hour away. It's right in between Milwaukee and Madison.
Yeah,
So that's where I was born and raised and grew up, and my parents still live there. My grandma's there. Um, so it's pretty unique. Like it's unique to be at this level and get to have some of the experiences that I'm very fortunate to have, um, professionally and personally. But I think it's very unique to be with like your home market team. Like
right.
there's no, you're not getting a nod just because you're from around here. It's just kind of a matter of circumstance, and it's the way it's played out has been nothing short of incredible for me to, especially with a championship run in there, to like have my family there to share in that experience. It's been really cool.
So I'm not trying to get you in trouble with any Bucks fans listening. Were you a Bucks fan?
Yes, I mean, I wasn't. I would say I didn't grow up with cable, so it was
Right,
like
right,
Channel
right.
24 would have a
Yes,
couple Bucks games on.
yes.
Um, I would say I am and was a diehard Packers fan. Like as a kid,
Okay,
like it
okay.
is Packers, Packers, Packers. But yeah, I mean, like I cheered for the Bucks as much as there was to cheer about. Short of after 2001, it was kind of some dark years. A lot of dabbling in mediocrity for a while. Which it's whatever, they get to the playoffs and like, yeah, Brandon Jennings is saying Bucks and 6, like
Yes.
we're gonna do it until we didn't. But yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, yes, a Bucks fan.
Yeah.
I also was like in that realm, and like I cringe now, but I was in that realm of like, oh, the college game, like they
For sure.
try and they play hard. And it's
Yeah.
like once you kind of get into this realm and you see just like, yeah, I mean, I get why they're not trying like super, super hard every single night. Because it's, a Tuesday in February and you're playing some random game, for one of 82. But yeah, that was another piece for me. I was always like, and I just wanted to watch college basketball. I was the purist, and just thought that they played so hard. So that's why it was better. But
Look, as an Australian, I always say this. I've never been bitten by the college basketball bug. It's not something that's ever really attracted me, unless there was a team that I was watching and I was curious about the top prospects and that type of thing. But when you're not involved with the school or anything, you never get drawn into that. This is
yeah,
probably a super long story for you, but I'm always fascinated because it seems like such an impossible task. If you weren't a professional player, whatever it is, to work your way to where you are. I mean, it's honestly incredible. And again, it's probably a long story. I'm not sure if you can summarize it for us, but how did you end up with the Bucks after playing one season, I believe, at UW Stevens Point?
correct. Yeah, a lot of dumb luck and fortunate circumstance, and then taking advantage of opportunities when they arose. So yes, I graduated from Watertown High School 2010. Actually took a long time, like well into the summer, deciding where I actually was going to go to school. Was actually going to go to Marquette to pursue like a medical route. That's what I thought I wanted to do, and Stevens Point was kind of like was recruiting me, but kind of in the back of my mind that whole time. And for whatever reason, the reason that I love the game, like I couldn't just not give it a try. So I ended up going to Stevens Point. We had a phenomenal team. They had won the national championship the year before I got there. We had a bunch of seniors, a really, really, really good Division III team. And actually, we lost to St. Thomas in the Sweet 16. St. Thomas ended up going on to win the national championship by 20 every game after they knocked us off on a last second basket. But so I was there for a year, and the coach that recruited me is Lance Randall, who's Wisconsin. His family, really, the coach of the year award in Wisconsin for high school basketball is named after his father. He's a legendary high school coach there from Oshkosh West. He actually was taking a job at St. Leo in Florida, Division II down there. Got the head job, and for whatever reason, for me, just didn't feel right to stay on. I wanted to be back closer to home. And so I ended up transferring to Wisconsin just to go to school as a student. And while I was there, my first senior year, so I went to school for a couple of years and was coaching summer league basketball for Watertown and actually Fort Atkinson high schools. Basically, that was my summer job was coaching boys and girls high school basketball at various summer leagues in the area, and just realized how much I loved it. And like whatever I thought I was going to do from a career standpoint, like somehow basketball was going to be involved. Like I just assumed I was going to coach high school basketball until I died. And so I really just realized how much I missed being around the game. And so I sent an email. It was like a couple weeks before the season had started. I sent an email to Kevin Bavery at Middleton High School and asked if he'd be open to having a volunteer, and that I, really wanted to work with the varsity. I think my schedule was actually, I took all science classes, and I was a chemistry major. And at Wisconsin, such a heavy research institution that like all the science classes are in the morning because all the professors then go in the afternoons to their labs and to do their research, to do their real job. And so my schedule actually worked out great with like a high school schedule to be able to be there in the afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I had a couple of times with night classes and stuff that I missed, but it ended up working out great. And he like pretty much without any, interview or prodding, he was like, yeah, we'd love to have you. Just kind of brought me on board. I came to the first meeting, met everybody. And then from there, just kind of rolled with him. So I was there for 3 years. As a volunteer assistant coach, the last 2 years of college. And then my first year out of college, I was working at Epic. It's a medical software company in Verona. And I just realized how much I hated corporate job. Like every day I was just like trying to get up to the high school, get to the gym, work out, whatever it was, with the team. And so Kevin was, prior to becoming the Middleton head coach, he was the head coach at Oregon High School, which is about 20 minutes south of Madison. And he was actually Shaka Smart's high school coach. And so he kind of leveraged that connection to open the realm of pursuing coaching as my job, pursuing coaching as a career. And so I was actually, everything was set to go. I had gotten into the grad program at VCU. Greenlit, we were good to go. And like 2 days after I got accepted in the grad program, he took the job at Texas and kind of threw it all into a mix. It worked out. But so then I took another, waited that third year thinking hopefully I could get to Texas. There's just a lot that goes into it. I was pretty naive to, regardless of the level, like how much goes into a staff coming together, whether it's a video and player development intern with the Bucks to, a GA spot at the college level and kind of everywhere in between for those like staffing positions. And so the Texas stuff wasn't working out. And around the same time that I realized like, this is what I want to commit to. Like if I can make coaching, just straight coaching my career, like that's what I want to do. Like I would enjoy teaching and, coaching a high school sport, but if I can just do straight coaching, that'd be great. That'd be the ideal. So we had a kid, he actually just graduated from Virginia Tech, but his name's Storm Murphy. He was a sophomore at the time for us. I just thought he was getting under recruited. Like kid's incredible. I didn't really know a whole lot about the landscape of, D2, D3, like where was he going to kind of fit? Like I knew he was way better than I was in high school. So he's going to be able to play somewhere. And so I reached out to Lance Randall, and he at that point was at a different Division II school, Lindenwood University, just outside of St. Louis. And I had reached out initially when I started and realized like, this is what I wanted to do. How can I do it? Like it just basically just picked his brain. I wasn't asking for a job at the time, but just asking for some insight into the coaching realm. How do I make the jump from high school to college, basically? And so fast forward when I'm calling about this kid that we got, that I'm like, I think you guys should take a look at. I think you'll love him. They ended up offering him. He ended up, blowing up that summer. And playing for a high level Chicago AAU team, ended up going to Wofford, played there for 4 years, and went to Virginia Tech. So he was better than Division II. So I had an eye for talent for sure. But at all that conversation, like he kind of just switched it up, and he's like, they're not related, but my GA spot's going to open up, and I'd like for you to interview for it. And I was like, this is awesome. So this is the guy that gave me my opportunity to coach in college, and before that, playing college. So he's already changed my life 2 times over. Ended up getting the job, going down there, packed up my stuff, moved down to St. Charles, Missouri. I was there for 2 years as like the 3rd assistant. And that spring, so this would have been like April, May of 2018, the GA spot at Wisconsin opened up. So it's my alma mater. I'm a Badger. Like, this is like, it's Division I, which at the time was like, this is the dream job. Like, and whatever I can do from here, like work my way up the Wisconsin coaching staff, whatever. Like, this is literally for me the dream job. And like the stars are aligning. Like Lance is childhood best friends with Greg Gard. Like, they played high school basketball together. Like, all these things are like coming together. And so I'm a finalist for the job. I was actually in Madison at the time, attending a wedding, and got the call, and they're like, we're going in a different direction. So I'm like borderline devastated. Like, this is like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get another shot here. Like, if I couldn't get this one, like, what job am I going to get? Like,
yeah.
And I was still, to a certain extent, like I was more than happy to be going back and working for Lance. Like, I love him. He is the basketball father I never had. So I knew like I was still going to be in a good spot, regardless of what the outcome was going to be, but certainly like disappointed by it. So I go back, and I'm in the midst of moving in with the other assistant. We're getting a spot together. And Lance calls me. He's like, hey, I know you're moving, but like, you got to come in. So brings me in. He's like, they're cutting your spot. So I'm like totally taken aback. Like the whole, and it wasn't just mine, the school in general is going through budget cuts.
Right.
And so there were a handful of job casualties within the athletic department and across the school. But I went from like, you're going to get the dream job to all of a sudden, I don't have a job in coaching right now. Like, and it's late May. I have no clue. There's the whole coaching carousel for college is done. Like, it kind of reaches its peak late March, early April with March Madness and everything. So I'm like totally at a loss. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. It's just like been kind of taken out from underneath me. And so he's like just, I actually had another wedding in Chicago that weekend, and it was a family wedding. So I zipped up to Chicago, saw them, was just kind of like, we're going to figure it out. For whatever reason, I had this sense of calm that it was going to work out. Whatever was going to happen was going to be right. And so I came back the next week, and he's like, fortunately June was camps. So he was able to keep me on and pay me through camp money, and just kind of keep me around and try to keep the ball rolling, trying to figure something out. And so we met the next week, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, if I don't have a formal job and I need to volunteer somewhere, like, it makes sense to get back to Wisconsin, whether it's at Wisconsin and volunteer if they'd be able to, or we had just played Marquette the year before, almost beat them. And like, he's very close with Pat Baldwin, who was the head coach at UW Milwaukee. So like the 3 Division I programs in Southern Wisconsin, like, he's got very strong connections to. He's going to vouch for me, and like, they'd be taking on free labor if they want it. Basically, it was like kind of what I was thinking was most likely going to happen. Live with my parents, live with the sibling, whatever I got to do, commute, I'll figure it out. But basically just work that year at the Division I level and like leverage that title or that experience into something, whether it's wherever that was going to be or not. But just stay in coaching, because if you get out completely, it's very, very difficult to then get back in. And so I kind of gave him that spiel, and he's like, well, what about the NBA?
You're like, yeah, sure.
I was like, yeah, of course I would take a job in the NBA. Like, what are you talking? Like, I had no idea that like the video room was even really a thing.
Right.
That like there's these intermediate, like I just assumed if you wanted to get to the NBA, I don't really know who I thought was coaching all these teams, but I just
Yes.
like, you just had to, you were, John Beeline or Tom Izzo or Coach Cal, like you became this high major Division I head coach, and they're like, oh, we'll bring you to be a head coach for the NBA team. I was like, he said it, and I was like, well, yeah, that'd be amazing. Like that, it's the NBA. And it literally, all this, like the good luck and circumstances and fortune was like, Bud had just been hired like 2 weeks prior, 2 or 3 weeks prior. He's bringing his whole staff from Atlanta, for the most part, from Atlanta to Milwaukee. All of these guys are worried about selling houses, buying a house, finding the right spot, kids, schools, like all this stuff. Where like they didn't have that much time to interview that many people.
Mm-hmm.
So Bud had obviously was in San Antonio. And so when Lance first got his head coaching job, he was in his mid-20s. He got a D3 job at Webster University. And this is like the late 90s, early 2000s. It's like the Spurs heyday. He went down to the Spurs training camps for, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 years in a row at the beginning of his career. And this was before like people went to training camps. Like he was the only guest coach there.
Mm-hmm.
Like now it's like our whole sideline is, filled, and there's a whole process of, getting people approved and getting them in. And like, it's hard because everyone wants to attend and, bump elbows and watch and learn and whatever they can. But he's like the only guy there at the time. And so he's like in all the coaches meetings. He's like rebounding, helping with drills, like stuff that would never happen in a million years now anywhere. And so he's not, I mean, him and Bud aren't friends by any stretch of the imagination, but like they're acquaintances and they know of each other. And he had his phone number. So he literally just shot him a text and was like, hey, let me know what you guys have. Like, I think I got a guy for you. He'd be great. And Bud texts back, like, how tall is he?
Yeah.
Because it's important. Like we're working with NBA players, so like it's hard to not be able to fulfill some of the responsibilities on the court. And he's like, well, he's 6'2". He's the D3 PJ Tucker. He'll do whatever you need. Which obviously is ironic now, having had PJ and winning the championship with him and all that stuff. But and so then Bud forwarded him Saint's phone number, one of our front of the bench assistants, and I just kind of ran with a couple phone interviews with him and ZP, who was the video coordinator at the time. I came in for a couple summer league practices to kind of in-person interview, just see me on the court, make sure I could like step and move my feet and not be a complete doofus. I'm not an NBA player. I was barely a D3 player. So, but I think they knew what they were getting. And then ended up going out to Vegas on my own, watched a couple of their games, and I just Saint kind of coordinated like right before a game, met with Bud for like 5 minutes and kind of flew back home, and they're like, we'll be in touch. And then July 24th, 2018, actually was a great day for me, finished my master's program. And that night, Saint gave me a call and offered me a job, and a few expletives, but I was like, yes, I'm in. And from there, it's been a continued journey, but that's really how I ended up in Milwaukee. And so it's always interesting now because in the space that I'm in, for people asking for advice, it's like really hard for me to tell you, like, you just like, there's a large amount of just luck that's involved with it. And certainly I think I work hard and hopefully do a good job, but there's a lot of luck.
We are in completely different jobs in basketball, but I quit one job I was doing, moved to Milwaukee, and just said, let's see if I can find some sort of work in basketball, in media. I've been lucky to be able to do that through a pandemic as well. And when people ask me, I say, well, I worked my ass off for sure. But I was also extremely lucky. So it's on different levels, but I totally get that. And it's a nice reminder to people, if you missed out on a job that you think is it, things can quickly turn around. That is an absolutely absurd story, though. I have to tell you, something that you wouldn't believe it could pan out that way.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things. It's like I've taken from it is like, for me in this instance, is like the job that you want, whatever the thing is, the thing that you want is not necessarily the thing that you need, and like it's worked out. I mean, and then some, certainly, but. I'm glad that was your takeaway from it, because that's one of the things that I'm a big believer in now, having kind of gone through it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to explain to people, particularly if they're disappointed about a path they're going down. So let's get to the NBA stuff then, because this is, I think, again, the insight to perhaps what fans and myself certainly don't get into too often. So you're in the position you're in, and eventually you spend it's a year in this role, and then you're able to move in to a I guess I don't know whether it's a more full-time role or paid role, whatever the description is, you can describe that. But working in an NBA video room, can you give us some insight to what this looks like through the week and what it looks like on game day? And when you've gone the path that you've gone, coaching different schools, I feel like it has to be a little bit intimidating, right? Working with these NBA coaches, even Bud, and saying, "Hey, Bud, this is what I'm seeing." And I mean, for me, I feel like I'd be sitting there saying, "Does he think I am a complete idiot right now?"
I mean, sometimes, and that's okay, because sometimes we are.
Yeah.
But the video room is it's such a unique experience, and I'd be remiss if I don't shout out the VR5, like my first year, 18-19. So Zach Peterson was the head video coordinator, Wes Bond, Skylar Rimmer, off to LA. Try to get it. I won't get too emotional on it. And then Ryan Frazier, who is now an assistant coach with the New Orleans Pelicans, and then myself. That was hands down best year of my life, all things considered. But the video room, it's so unique because you have to spend so much time together. Like, we are the first people in, the last people out. We are there to service the players first, and then the coaches to service the players. And so literally the job description is endless. Like, it can be something from a video standpoint, like I need this clip, I need this game, I need whatever, to, I need you to go pick up dry cleaning, this, that, like everything. It's all encompassing. And like, my approach with it was always, whatever I'm doing, even if it's not exactly basketball, like, it's helping somewhere down the line with basketball. It's helping an assistant coach, be able to spend time with their family so that, they're in a better mood the next day when they come in and we meet and we're talking about a scout. Like, it's not as direct as being a coach, but I feel very strongly that there's a ton of impact, like, down the line with what the video room does. And so the bulk of it is prepping video, pulling games off of Hoop One, coding them. So 1-2ing them, we, put them into possessions, label a bunch of stuff, play calls, shots, play results, things like that, to then give to the coaches for them to watch. So we're like kind of the meat and potatoes, like the grinders, boom, 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 like lather, rinse, repeat, game after game, whether it's for scout games. The head video coordinator is a little bit different because your primary job is to manage the team's film. Mm-hmm. And so that's more working with Bud. But the bulk of the room is focused on prepping for scout film, and then just the on-court stuff, whether it's vitamins before practice, guys shooting after practice, and then the practice court, whatever role that they need to fulfill within whatever drills we're doing that day. And then, if guys want to come back at night, like, we're the people that service them, like, help them, like, whatever. If coach says, "Hey, I need somebody here at 5:00 for Bobby," like, we're there. So that's kind of the big picture. I think with the day-to-day, it's really just a matter, is it a game day or not? You lose track of, I'm sure you're well aware, you lose track of what day of the week it is. It's just either a game day or it's a practice day or a lockout day. Like, where it's just kind of gets shuffled around a little bit. I would say a practice day is normally where video room's in there early. You're probably working on film, working on scout stuff, whatever you got upcoming. And that's just a matter of the schedule. Like what teams are you staffed to with your scout coach? And so sometimes you're super, super, super busy. Sometimes you don't have a scout going on. So it's like a lighter. And maybe you're working on projects or picking up some slack for somebody else. And then, whatever, hour and 20 minutes before practice, we're on court helping out with the vitamins, the individual player workouts, practice. And then kind of that break in the afternoon is, again, like that's the time for you to take care of whatever you need to kind of finish up. And then it's the NBA. So there's games going on every night. If you got a scout game coming up, you're probably coding a game that night. Wake up the next morning, get it to the scout coach. They're giving you back a game. You're organizing whatever they've sent you based on what they've marked. And lather, rinse, repeat for 9 months. Game just kind of puts a little flux in for everything because you just got to navigate having the actual team's game going on. And like the responsibilities that come with the game, like the shoot around wouldn't be very much different. Film before, if you're responsible for the scout, then you're putting together the scout material, like the shoot around tape and the pregame tape, stuff that the team is going to eventually watch after the coaches kind of finalize it. And then, you're coming back to Pfizer usually 3 hours before the game and getting things set up, and you got like various responsibilities for setup over there. Just in terms of the equipment that we use in back and the bench and whiteboards and the coaches meeting room, and making sure everything's good to go come game time. And then for the most part, you're out on court for the pregame workouts and helping the players get ready for the game with whatever they need. And then typically, if you got a scout game, you're probably coding it while our game's going on and like trying to balance both. Hopefully if it's not like a 1 out or a 2 out, then like the urgency is not as high. So you can pay a little bit more attention to our game, but it's how it's like the lifeblood of the coaching staff. It's how everything keeps kind of moving along, chugging along.
All right. That's going to do it for part 1 of our chat with Blaine Mueller, Bucks assistant coach. Now, I did originally plan that this was going to be a 1-part podcast, but the conversation has been so good and we've got plenty to get to in the next part. We are going to discuss clearly the Bucks championship run and all the moments that went through that from a coaching perspective, working with Giannis. What did PJ Tucker bring to this team? And of course, we have to discuss MarJon Beauchamp and early impressions from Blaine from Las Vegas Summer League. So the second part of this conversation is awesome. I can confirm that. Make sure you listen to that early next week for Monday's podcast. Check out the Locked On NBA podcast, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And enjoy the weekend. Hopefully you've enjoyed the back end of this week. We'll see you guys on Monday.